So the live stream is starting now. We're going to do a quick refresher of where we were in the game. Their objectives were adding gameplay mechanics and spawning on how this is actually going to work. We don't know exactly what the game is going to do towards the end. But in Construct so far, we've got 2 layers, player layer on top, background layer locked. As far as our objects go, we made a background that had 5 frames, so it would be a random color. We made an enemy 50 by 50, a player 40 by 40, projectile 10 by 10. Projectile had behavior added to it, so it would move off this, destroy outside of layout. Player, we did bound to layout. I think we might have added one other thing. And then we added these 7 spawn locations around the outside because this is where the enemies are going to spawn from. And we have touch right now. In our event sheet, we started adding spawn time, min, and max. We have a score that'll start keeping track of the score. Enemy movement speed, that's pixels per second. Player fire rate, that's how often the player fires. BG color, that's just going to be assigned a random number on the start of layout, 0 to 4. And it'll set our animation frame 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Every tick, we have the enemy rotating towards the player's X and Y. Moving forward, the enemy movement speed in pixels, that's 1 pixel. And then the player rotates towards mouse.x, mouse.y, because remember, in our object area, we also added in the mouse. So the mouse is here so that the player will just look towards the mouse. Player fire rate, we just said that every 0.03 seconds, we can adjust that for power up or debuff. We can adjust that so that it'll go faster or slower, and it just spawns another projectile. Right now we're doing with simple geometry, simple images. And the only thing we have is enemy is overlapping. When the projectile is overlapping on the enemy is destroyed, the projectile is destroyed, and we add 1 to the score even though we're not doing anything with that yet. So, now that I've got my code up on the screen, we are at this point where we need to start adding the logic for how the spawn locations are going to work. So those are our locations around the board. And we've cloned our object type. The event we're going to go and create now on the bottom. We're making a new event. So I'm going to click this Add Event. And it's going to be system every X seconds. So I'll type in SYS and hit enter to get system. And then I get every X seconds to select. And now instead of putting in just a number for this interval in seconds, I'm going to put in a random with a range of spawn time minimum as my low end and spawn time max as my high end. Okay? So what that's going to do is it's going to say every 0.75 to 3 seconds an enemy is going to spawn. We may have to adjust those numbers later. They may just not work for us. And we're going to add an action. And the action is going to be on spawn location 0. And spawn location 0, we're going to have it spawn another object. Okay, on here we have to click to choose an object. We're going to have it spawn an enemy. And instead of being on layer 0, because remember layer 0 is our background layer, we're just going to type in player layer to make sure we get the right one. Because we might not remember where our layers are all the time. So if I start by typing in a quote, I'll get a quick selection piece here, and I can double click to get player layer. Image point 0, that just means it's going to be spawning at the center of the player. Eventually, when you change it to a tank or a spaceship or whatever else this will be, you would have to make a new image point at the center or end of like the cannon or the laser or the, whatever it is, and then just have it spawn from that image point number. So that's something we could get to later. So this means that spawn location 0 is going to spawn an enemy every few seconds. Now, I'm going to copy and paste this action 7 more times because we have 8 locations. Okay? So I just select this action, Control C to copy, and then Control V. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I should have 8 total. And I have to start changing it, because if the enemy spawns at just spawn location 0, it's not going to be a very interesting game. It should spawn all around, evenly, equally, randomly distributed. So what we can do here is we can double-click this second action, and now we could go back, and then go back, and now pick spawn location 1, and then go next, and then go next, and then leave everything the same. But Construct has a shortcut. If you right-click and choose Replace Object, it knows that we want the instruction to stay the same. We just want to pick a different object. So I'm going to right-click on this third one down, and I'm going to hit Replace Object. Now it provides me a choice. Do I want to replace the enemy that is being spawned, or do I want to replace the spawn location where it's being spawned from? I want to replace the spawn location. So now I have to find the spawn location 2, because that's my third one, because we start with 0. And I'm going to do that for the rest of these. Right-click, Replace Object. I want to replace the spawn location. Now I want spawn location 3. Right-click, Replace Object. Spawn location. Now I want spawn location 4. Right-click, Replace Object. Spawn location is what we're replacing. Now we're on 5. And then right-click, Replace Object. So this wasn't as bad with the right-click, Replace Object, right? Had to do that over and over again. Replace Object, spawn location. Now it's in the last one. So now, on our layout, let's test it out and see what that gives us for a preview.
Oh, not good.
So my player is stuck in a corner right now. Oh, because I added things, I didn't save it. So he's not firing fast enough. Everyone's converging on me, and it kind of just looks like everything's looks like a strawberry. Everything's moving in towards the center. All right. I think yesterday I added behavior, not in the event sheet, but to the player. And on the player, let's take a look and see what behavior it has. I think I might not have saved when I did it. So if I go to behaviors, I have 8 direction. Oh, I know why it wasn't moving. I was using the WASD instead of the arrow keys. So yeah, that's going to be a big turning point for me. So now I can kind of move around. It's always facing the way that I'm going. But there's not a lot of variety in where the enemies are moving from. And this is definitely way too many enemies for right now. So, can't move. Are you using the arrow keys? Up. Jack found it. Jack's got a giant. Is that fire rate like 0.01? 0.0003. So what Jack just did was, let's take a look. Fire rate 0.0003. Now if I run here, now you can see a little bit overpowered in this.
Just set it to every tick.
Yeah, we don't want it every tick.
It works well.
It will work, but we'll adjust this as we go through. For right now, I want to take a look at this big piece.
How about we create a variable and then randomly set that variable, and based on that we can make it spawn in a certain location.
That's where we're moving towards, Adam. You are like right with me. For right now, look at that, high five. For right now, bring everybody back with me up on the screen now. What we're going to do here is we're going to adjust spawn time minimum and raise it to like 1.25. Okay? Now, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to divide up the spawn. And I want to make it so that only the even number ones will spawn on this tick and only the odd number ones will spawn on that tick. And we can build a random variable later to add where the spawn location is. But that I haven't written out the logic for it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this entire line 5, Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Now, on the first one, I'm going to delete all the odd action lines. So what that means is now I'll get them from half on this random selection. And on this one, I'm going to delete all the even ones. So I'm just clicking and pressing delete on the keyboard, not backspace, delete. So now as I go to run layout, this should be a little bit more manageable. My fire rate is still there. There's the first enemy on the screen, and now I kind of got other enemies waving in. And I'm still getting overwhelmed pretty quickly. I'm running out of space to move around.
I changed my
And-
fire rate, but it didn't change. Oops.
You changed your fire rate, but it didn't change?
Yeah. Aiden, how does this look?
It's too small.
Aiden.
It's only 0.01. It's like 0.0000.
Then it's probably just too small for it to pick up on. All right, so that kind of divided things up.
Bro, I think Stranger Things.
What I want to do now is I want to take a look and see. We'll deal with the spawn locations. We split the odd and even for variety. We're going to add just a little thing to keep track of the score for right now. So back on the layout, I'm going to insert a new object, and it's going to be a text object. I don't want to insert it on the background layer, so I'm going to pick the player layer to insert it on.
Wait, what?
And so there's the text object on the player layer. I'm going to size it up a little bit. Don't get distracted. You guys got to keep up with me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So I don't like this being called text and text 2. I'm going to call this text score. And we're going to do some settings so that we can see what's actually there. For what's inside the text area, it's going to start off with score : space 0. I'm going to set the font to at least 48 pixels. So it's a little bit bigger and easier to see. Now, sometimes, like right here, it just disappeared. That means that my area for the text box is not big enough to show the message I put in there at that size. So as I drag it just a little bit bigger, it shows up. So I'm going to drag it big enough for that, and I'm going to adjust some of the hot spots. So it says left alignment is horizontal, or horizontal alignment is left. I'm going to change that to center. Top alignment is there. I'm going to change that to center. Hotspot, I'm going to change that to center. And now you can see the center of this object is where the word score is. I'm going to change the color by double-clicking on this drop-down arrow, going over and clicking on Other, going over to Custom, and I'm going to put in the 250, 250, 250 off-white color for the text. And I'm going to adjust the position of this to be exactly 427 in the X, because that's halfway. I don't really care where it is on the Y, that 416. I can move that to like 500. Well, that's off the screen, so 500 is too much. But like 450 would also be okay there. The size, eventually if I get into like double or triple digits, I may need more space. So I may stretch it out a little bit more and then set this back to 427. And maybe move this to 440. So I'm just picking numbers where I think it looks okay. I also want to adjust the opacity of this just to throw in a little variety. Right now it's at 100%. Maybe we'll drop it down to like 75%. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on it on the actual screen, go to Z order, and send to bottom of layer. That way when enemies start spawning, it will walk over the score. Kind of look like we're being overrun like a Zerg rush in StarCraft. So move to bottom layer is what I'm selecting. But now we need something in the event sheet to keep track of the score. So we already have an every tick event up on number 2, because on-title layout is number 1, every tick is number 2. So I'm just going to add an action to the every tick, and it's going to be for TXT score. And it's going to be set. So I'm typing in set text to get that. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to join the word score, capital S, semicolon, space. And outside the quotation marks, I'm going to put in an ampersand and the variable score. And I can tell that it's a variable because it's got the little green globe icon next to it. So there's our score variable. I can either double click that or just hit enter. I'll double click and then hit done. And so every tick, it's updating the score. And we know every time we destroy an enemy, we get one added to the score variable. So let's see what that looks like now as we're playing the game. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm already starting to get overrun. Maybe 8 is too many to have spawn. Because I think technically I'd be hit now and it would be all over.
I mean, you could do multiple hits.
Yeah, we could do multiple hits, and we've got like power-ups that we'll have to go. But again, this is the thing, because what did we say it was a game like Tanky or something?
Well, now it's more like zombies.
Now it's more like zombies?
To me.
To you.
Because you bring people.
Alright, do you want to make it more like zombies instead of them directly swarming at you? Alright, let's add, this is where it goes in there. We added the score. We're going to add an event to the enemy. So the event is going to be on the enemy. We're looking for the on-created event. Oh, you know what? We don't need that yet. We don't need on-created yet. I want to go add the score. So we made the variable score yesterday.
Yeah, I know that.
We have every time the enemy is overlapping a projectile, the system adds 1 to the value of score. And inside the every tick, we added this action of setting text score to the word score with the semicolon and the space and the number global variable of the score. Gabriel, what's up?
Well, my enemies are spawning too rapidly, so they're just like lining up massively.
If they're spawning too rapidly, again, we'll tweak how fast they spawn for gameplay later. Raise your spawn time max and raise your spawn time min. So let's say if we change this to 2 seconds for spawn time maximum and 4 seconds, let's see if that gives us a little bit better gameplay results. So my character's moving around, now I'm waiting, and now I'm starting to be able to manage a little bit better. Got to prioritize what's getting close. I'm still getting overwhelmed pretty quickly. Okay? So again, we'll keep building on this, and we'll flush out the details of making the game fun after we have the mechanics actually working. So one of the things I don't like is I don't like that the enemy is just directly moving. So one of the things we can do is we can add a behavior to the enemy, and I want to add a sign behavior. So I'm going to go to behaviors, enemy.
Isn't this going to be like just like a collection game then?
No, it's not going to be a collection game, because even though they're moving sinusoidally, they're going to be still traveling towards the player. Now they're just going to oscillate up or down or left or right. So if we add that sign, again, we'll just leave it at default. Right now, active on start, wave, sign. We could change it up and do like square waves or triangles or sawtooths. So now if we run this, now, let's see what's happening now. So now, I don't know if I like the sawtooth.
Yeah.
They're kind of just jumping around.
Yeah.
They're like that. Maybe that's like a teleport debuff where the enemy will get a power up. So I'm going to change it from sawtooth to sign. So we have these sign behaviors that we can set movement and wave. And what that's going to do, now the enemy should be oscillating kind of back and forth. So some of them are kind of like stalling and they're kind of moving around. So there's a little bit more variety. But the fact that they're all set at horizontal by default, I think it would be better if some are horizontal, some are vertical. And so now there's a lot more variety where some of them are kind of like moving backwards away from me. So they're a little bit more random. Okay? So, I'm trying to think of what's the best way to do this. And it goes back to that idea of, let's see, how much left do we have to do? We have a lot left to do. We've added this one. Let's keep going and we'll add some. We'll leave the sine wave on there, but we're going to tweak it with a thing called an array, which we haven't used yet. And I've got to work out the logic before I want to present it to you. So let's finish up some of the stuff that we do know already, which is like adding like black explosion particles and white explosion particles. So on here, I'm going to go back to the layout. We're going to create a particles object on the player layer. I'm going to make the size of this by resizing the image canvas to 10 by 10 from 250 by 250. The color I want is my off black color, 50, 50, 50. And I'm going to paint bucket into this little tiny piece here. So there's the size of it. Now we have to adjust what's happening in the actual properties. So rate, I'm going to up to 100. Spray cone, I'm going to change to be 360, so it goes all the way around like a full circular explosion. Continuous spray, I'm going to drop down and change it to one shot, so it happens once and then it disappears. Speed, let's try 600. Size, I'm going to change it from 32 to 10. I'm not going to adjust opacity. Grow rate, maybe we'll try 10. Grow rate randomizer, we'll try -50.
Negative 50.
And then speed randomizer, let's set to 200. So what we can do now is on the event sheet, we'll add a new event for enemy destroyed. So I find the enemy, and then on destroyed is the command. So on destroyed, we're going to have the enemy spawn another object. And the object we're going to choose is going to be the particles. And we're going to spawn it on, quote, the player layer. Okay. I also don't like the name particles. I'm going to rename this to particles black, because we'll make a particles white for the projectile disappearing. So now as we play, that's a little bit too big.
I like it.
Set the grow rate to like negative 50.
Maybe I'd set it to 50 instead of -50.
No, the grow rate instead of rate randomizer.
Oh, sorry, I left the grow rate at 10. This one, I think, grow rate was -50 instead of the grow rate randomizer. What was that, at 0 by default?
Yeah.
All right, so now let's see. Yeah, that was much bigger than I expected.
No, it doesn't.
That's better.
Yeah, the particle kind of.
They disappeared too.
Mr. Wilcox, what did you change?
Change the spin.
So the particles are a little distracted, a little bit big. So again, we can tweak all these values here. Maybe let's try -100 for grow rate.
It still doesn't work.
And
No, you're just finding it.
now they're, I think, a little bit smaller. All right, that's good.
Really small.
You did set it to one
I'll
shot.
try -50. Feel that.
All right. So that looks okay.
-50 is like perfect.
I set it to -100, and I liked it for the grow rate.
Oh, it's the size.
Maybe the speed, let's try lowering that to 500 and see if that looks
Change
any
the-
better.
Change the size randomizer.
Dude,
It's too high.
What did you change your size randomizer to?
10.
So size randomizer,
No, it was at 2.
you mean speed randomizer?
Did we not do size randomizer?
I didn't do size randomizer.
Ah, that's
Oh, it
why
actually
my
looks
time
better
was
with the
off.
size randomizer.
Let's change the size randomizer to 10 and we'll look and see. Oh, that's good. All right. Gabe, question?
How do I make the particle effect?
So the particle effect was an object that we just created. It was double click on the screen and make another particles. I'm going to make another one right now because I want it to be particles white that's a little bit smaller for that. So we have particles black. Actually, yeah, I'll go through the process of making the particles again.
Mr. Wilkins, my particles are like completely broken.
Why are they completely broken? What are they doing? Staying on the screen? You didn't change it to one shot. You have it as continuous.
So what's that?
It's a setting for the particles. So click on the particles. Right here, take a look at mine. Particles. And I'm going to go down into properties. And the type of this is one shot.
Continuous, right?
Okay? So Gabe, here I go. I'm making the particles white same way. So I'm going to go back onto the layout, add another particles, insert it here onto the player layer, and I'll go through those same steps. Size, I'm going to do 10 by 10.
Sam, I made it zombies. Look.
I saw that made it red.
Okay. This color, I'll go with the 250, 250, 250, so it's the off-white color. And I'll paint that there. That's all I have to do for creating it. Now it's all tweaking the properties. So on the actual text document, we list a bunch of things that you can change. It says try setting the rate to 100. The spray cone to 360 degrees. The type from continuous spray to one shot. So rate 100, spray cone 360, type one shot. Now in the initial particle properties, speed I upped to
Spray cone.
200. I'm sorry?
Where's the spray cone
The sprite color
thing? Oh, never mind.
is when you make it, when you choose the color.
No, I did it.
Speed 600, size I'm going to set back to 10 pixels. Grow rate I'm going to set to -10. Oh, I'm sorry, not -10, -50. Speed randomizer I'm going to lower from 800 to 200. So if I run that there, I can't see those, but if I refresh, we'll see it real quick. There's the particles disappearing. They look okay. Again, we can deal with those. I'll move these off screen for now so that we don't see them on the start of the layout.
We're gonna make like an is alive now.
We are going to make it is alive when we get there. We're going to add an event now to the projectile on destroyed. And we're going to add an action. And actually, I'm just going to copy this one up here. Control C to copy. Control V to paste. And I'm going to go replace object. Enemy is going to replace projectile. And then spawn particles is going to replace, instead of black particles, we'll do white particles. But I didn't rename it white particles yet. It's still just particles. But I want to rename it so I know it's the white ones. So particles, I'm going to go change the name to particles white. So now,
No, see that has the issue
Ah.
when it gets destroyed and
so maybe I don't want it destroyed, because now when it gets to the outside of the layout, it's creating an explosion. We could do like a missile command type thing where we're creating particle explosions. But if we move this, let's see if we move this onto the enemy destroyed. Yeah, that's a little bit better. It's black and white mixed together.
well no, what it does look on all of them. When you,
So I moved it up to spawn particles white on the projectile when the
Yeah,
enemy is destroyed. It does it on all of them?
Yeah,
Maybe it does have to be on just the enemy.
How do you make it explode like that?
Replace object. I'm going to replace projectile with enemy. So now let's see. We run it here. There's our first enemy. And it's just a black and white explosion.
it's still
So we'll see how far we can go for this.
Wait, how do you do it for the white?
For the white one, I changed it. I didn't do on projectile destroyed because then it was doing it when the projectile hit the outside of the layout. It was making an explosion. So it was on enemy destroyed. The enemy's gonna spawn both particles, both particles black and particles white.
Can I do it if projectiles overlapping the enemy, then like, because that's what I did with the black particles earlier.
Yeah, that would work too.
Wait, how do you make the particles for act like that?
But now here's the other thing. What happens if we give the enemies health? and it takes like 5 projectiles for it to explode. We don't want it to always explode when it's getting hit. We want it to like have health.
How do you make the particles act like that? Like the circle?
Oh yeah, I like the particles.
So that's setting the particle's properties. So if you look at the text document, we set the value of the rate, the spray cone, the type, the speed, the size, the grow rate, and the speed randomizer. So that's all inside here. So I've clicked on the particles black or the particles white. It doesn't really matter. And then I go and find properties. And in properties over here, I find rate, spray cone, 360, type, one shot, and then we adjusted select values inside here to make it be a circular explosion. So that's how we were able to do that. Let's try speed 400. And then speed randomizer 50. And let's do that for the particles white and particles black. I'm going to try another one. Speed randomizer 50 and speed 400.
Okay, now it's not finding the black one.
Let's see.
Wait, let's do it first.
All right,
Yeah,
so it's
if
looking
you're on
okay.
all those, you need to-
Gabe, what's up?
if you want the
So
white
when I
purples,
run
you
the
need to
layout,
move
it
them.
says, it gives me message, it says it cannot curate.
So what
consistency of
happens
the
is
object,
you set the
type,
projectile, but
particle,
because
or
no
instances of
projectiles
the object
mentioned in that event, it goes for all them.
Did you delete your particles by accident?
Projectile to enemy.
Did
So
you
that's
delete
the
your
enemy.
particles by accident?
What particle?
Oh.
It says it can't create particles, and then there's particle.
You want me to make mine extremely laggy for like 1 second?
I'm gonna be honest.
You
All
just
right.
put one sheet.
Let me get one thing done, and then I'll start troubleshooting because the live stream's still going. So on here, what I want to see, well, this is HUD. Yeah, we don't need that yet. Duplicate the enemy's last option, change. I'm going to stop it here. We haven't done our HUD or our game over logic, but we have this here. Now we're just going to go through different troubleshooting to try and get things going the same